Well, welcome back, folks. Today we're going to diverge a little bit from where we've been at in our video series on the Honda SL125. We're going to do a little walkabout or review of a different project, and that's my 1972 Kawasaki G5 100. Now, I didn't do much video work on this project. I did do a first start video on YouTube on my channel, so if you're interested in that first start video and you haven't seen it, check the link here over my left shoulder on the right side of your screen, and that will take you to that video if you're interested. Bought this bike probably at this point 12 years ago or so, I would say, give or take. Bought it at the Mid-Ohio Vintage Motorcycle Day swap meet. I'd been looking for one for some time. I have never owned one of these bikes before. I did have a friend in high school that got one new for his birthday, and I always admired it. I thought it was a very pretty bike, very attractive, and it ran really well. That always stuck in my mind over the years, so I thought if I ever find a G5 that I could restore, I'd pick it up, and I found it at Mid-Ohio. Paid $100, I think, threw it in the back of my buddy's truck, and we brought it home. Sat a few years before I got around to doing it, but ultimately I finished it. I think it was the summer of 2018, so it's about 3 years ago now. It's been finished, and it's been sitting as part of my collection. I generally keep it covered up. So in a minute here, a few minutes, we'll do a little walkabout and we'll discuss the project in more detail. There is one question I invariably will get when I do these kind of reviews, and one series of comments. Let's talk about the question first. I almost always get asked by one or more people, is the project for sale? No, it's not. This is part of my private personal collection. I didn't restore it and put thousands of dollars, literally, and hundreds of man hours in this project to sell it. And in fact, I could never recoup my investment from it. I knew that going in. I know that going in. I've done enough of these projects. One could not afford to buy it from me with what I've got invested in time and materials and labor. And it was restored with no intentions of ever selling it. So just save yourself the effort. It's not for sale. The comments that I get also tend to be along the lines of, well, you're going to ride it, aren't you? You're going to use this bike, aren't you? And again, the question is, no, I'm not. I've got too much time and money in it. I live in a very rural area on a gravel road, and I'm not going to take this project with all fresh paint, everything's been redone, re-chromed, and ride it up and down a gravel road. Just to get the paved roads, I'm going to have to go a ways on gravel. I'm certainly not going to trailer it somewhere to ride it around. I'm certainly not going to do that. It's, in my opinion, way too nice. I don't want to take a chance on dropping it, damaging it, chipping the paint. It wasn't restored with the intention of riding. It was restored as a show bike. I do have other survivors that I do ride. Yamaha RD 350. Of course, the CT70 is a survivor. I got a 73 Kawasaki F11 250 Enduro. That's a survivor that I ride. Kawasaki KZ 650. That's road worthy, though it does need a little work. I got a number of other projects that are riders. My restorations are not riders. Never will be, not as long as I own them anyway. Anyway, I wanted to address those 2 points before we get on to the project review. What we're going to do now is I'm going to move the bike outside, and we'll do a little walkabout, and we'll discuss the bike as it currently exists in a completed state. So I'll see you outside. Well, there's the 1972 Kawasaki G5 100. I'm out in front of my shop on a pad. It's a slightly overcast day, which actually might work better for video work, and there's not much breeze, so I'm trusting we won't have a lot of wind noise. Anyway, obviously it's the left side. It's been completely restored, including the rebuild of the motor, transmission, all new bearings, seals. Engine was locked up when I got it. Most of the bike is original, with the exception of the front fender, which was damaged. It was cracked. The front fender bracket, which was twisted and bent, and that was hard to find. The fender, not so much. They did do some engineering changes in their Kawasaki, but the fender I didn't have too much trouble with, but that bracket was a bear because they changed that in '73 on, and to find a good original that was used and I had to repaint it, bracket was not easy. The other thing I had trouble with, believe it or not, was the right foot peg, finding an original that matched the original style, NOS. I didn't have a lot of trouble with the left one right here. I found that pretty quickly. But the right one, it took me some time to locate an NOS foot peg. Most of the rest of the bike is original. Of course, the seat has been recovered. I think I reused the foam on that, if I recall. I'm not sure anymore. Let's do a little walkabout. We'll look under the seat too here in just a few minutes. I have ridden it only enough to test the transmission to make sure it shifts okay, and it does. You can see there I've got an original license plate. The bike is not registered. That's an original Michigan, where I live, 1972 license plate. Everything is correct for this model year. All the chrome, of course, has been redone. The paint, the frame I had powder coated professionally because I can't fit a frame that big in my oven. Everything else that I could fit in my oven, which I think was pretty much everything, I did myself in terms of powder coating. And it's virtually all powder coated. It doesn't leak any oil at all. That's that foot peg I had so much trouble with right there. I did not paint this bike, by the way. I had a painter that I've used for quite some time in northern Indiana, South Bend. He painted my H2A, also Kawasaki H2A Triple 750. He painted that, and he painted this bike. He does really great work. This was before I started painting. Playing around painting on my own. That's why I didn't paint this. And he did all the decorations and the decals and everything. When he returned the parts, they looked like this. I didn't have to do anything. Of course, I relaced the wheels myself. All new chrome, I think I mentioned that. Let's take a look at the instrument panel. See, it's got 1.1 miles on it. That's an NOS speedometer. The original was pretty much trashed. Everything does work on it. I think you can see right there the neutral light. But the high-low beam, brake light, tail light, horn, everything does work on it. Handlebars are original. The grips, the cables are not. The re-sleeving I did myself. You've seen me do that before in different videos, but the cables are all new. The fuel tank is dry. In fact, the fuel system is completely dry. I don't know how much you're going to be able to see in there. I do not store fuel in my restoration projects. Once I ran it back 3 years ago. In fact, I didn't even run it on fuel in the fuel tank. I never had fuel in the fuel tank. Ran it off the auxiliary tank. Then I drained the fuel system carburetors behind this cover because this is a rotary valve engine. Completely drained everything and then put it away dry. Everything I have is stored completely dry, except my occasional riders that I'll put fuel in them for the summer. Sun's starting to come out here a little bit, so might get a little shadows. You're going to have to just bear with me. The seat isn't quite sitting right there, as you can see, because I don't have it closed. In fact, let's take a look underneath that seat. There's the underside of the seat, an original owner's manual, or rider's handbook, as Kawasaki called it. That is not original of this bike, but I did get that, I think, on eBay. Seat pan's been repainted. I did that myself, powder coat, and I did recover this seat as well. I reupholstered it. I don't know if I mentioned that before or not, but you can get a look at what it looks like under the seat. I did put the battery back in it for this video, just to show you that the lights work with the neutral light and such. But I typically don't store my projects with the batteries in them either. I do remove the batteries. And I have a little charging station where I keep them charged and rotate a trickle charger across all my projects. I'm going to try to keep out of the shadow here a little bit. So that's pretty much the project. I see the light is playing a little trick on some of the colors in the various pieces, but it does match in person. Everything looks really good. Very, very pleased with how this turned out. Tires are new. They are not NOS. They're new tires. They're newer tires. And they are appropriate sized for this bike. So there's nothing mismatched. They are, so in other words, the tires that are on this bike are exactly the size it came on the bike originally. And the pattern does match very closely, almost identically, the original tires that were used. You can see there I got a hockey puck underneath the side stand. I use practice hockey pucks. I just buy a bag of them. I don't know if they come in like 10 or 12 in a bag, and I use those side stand props. That, number one, brings the bike up a little straighter, especially for video work, and it protects the bottom of that side stand from abrasion on concrete or rough surfaces. So I usually use those hockey pucks. Sometimes I use a little piece of plywood, but usually I try to use hockey pucks if I can. So for those of you in Canada, Pete, probably appreciate that. So I think that's going to be it for this video today, folks. Again, wasn't intended to be complex or involved. Just wanted to give you a flavor of what it looked like, because I don't believe I did one of these on this bike. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.